name is Dan Soriano. Currently retired, but I held the position of traffic engineering administrator for the city of Las Cruces for 11 years. Well, as I recall, this went back a few years, back to probably around 2005, really at the request of the police department. At the time, there was an outcry from citizens about the number of red light running that was going on in the city and how they were demanding more enforcement from our police officers to try to take care of that. Well, of course, as we know, the police officers can only do as much as they can, as many resources as they have. So we started looking at other options, and one of them being, at that time, was a relatively new technology, being the red light camera program. So we started researching that, looking at what other cities were doing, and started looking. Then we discovered Albuquerque was going to start implementing their cameras. They put theirs in, I think, around 2006, 2007. We still didn't pursue it too heavily here in Las Cruces. We wanted to kind of see how things were going to fall out, how effective these cameras were becoming, if any. And after doing that research and deciding it was a good option as far as enforcement measure and enhancing the safety of locations from the before and after studies we've seen, that we implemented here in 2009 here in Las Cruces. I think I've seen enough data, not only from what we've done, but from what people have done around other parts of the country, to satisfy me that it is a good device. It does change the behavior of the driver, and it generally changes it in a positive way. So I think that's certainly a measure that it's helpful to the police, because obviously police cannot be at all locations at all times. And so it's a helpful enforcement tool for them as well. It's the intersection of Main and Solano. That's one that's currently residing on the state right-of-way, and in fact did have cameras that were active at one time and then were later deactivated. So we were able to collect data at that intersection as far as violations while the cameras were on, and everyone knew the cameras were on and operating. And then later, at a point when the cameras were deactivated by the mandate of the state, we kept collecting the violation data. They were not issuing citations, they were not activated, they weren't flashing or going off, but they were still collecting the violations that were ongoing at the intersection. And so we looked at that data before and after, and it basically concluded that driver behavior initially, when the cameras were on and activated, the violations did start dropping significantly. In the first 3 or 4 months, they dropped almost 50%, as I recall. And they stayed pretty much at that level. Once the cameras were deactivated, and it was known that they were deactivated and no longer working, as the data was still being collected on violations, the violations slowly started going back up again, back to the original level that they were at originally. So that pretty much told us that these cameras do dictate driver behavior. I think the largest misconception by motorists is that once the light turns yellow, they cannot enter the intersection without having the cameras activated and them having a picture taken of them. That basically is false. The cameras activate once the red light comes on, and it's a quarter of a second into the red light phase. So really, legally, that's really why we have the yellow interval at the intersection, is to allow vehicles to clear the intersections. And so if you're entering the intersection on the yellow phase, the cameras won't see you from the standpoint of red light running. Yes, the city's getting some revenue out of this, but it's only because we have violations that are occurring, and those that are possibly jeopardizing the safety of the intersection. Quite simply, if everybody complied with the rules, this wouldn't become a money-making scheme, so to speak.